What's up YouTube, Drea here with another video, and this time I will be bringing you my full review of the Sony Xperia XA2. I did an unboxing of this phone a couple weeks ago and gave you guys my first impressions, and now I'm here to give you a more detailed review and tell you exactly what I like and what I dislike about this phone. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so getting started, I always like to start my reviews talking about the design and overall quality of the phone. And with this one, of course, you know that the Sony XA2 is Sony's mid-range phone, not a flagship. This is going to cost you about $350. So, of course, you're not going to expect to get something built with the best material that you would find typically on a flagship phone. Now this phone, if you flip it around back, it is made out of plastic, but that being said, the frame is all metal, and when you get it in the hand, it does have a really nice weight to it. So it feels premium, and it's probably one of my favorite things about the phone is just, you know, holding it and how it feels. It's easy to convince somebody just by holding it that, you know, it's a flagship. You can easily convince someone that you paid $600-700 for this phone. And I am pretty impressed overall with the build quality of the XA2, especially considering the price. It really does not feel like a plastic phone at all. So definitely kudos to Sony for that. Now, I know a lot of people like to talk about bezels nowadays, and this phone, it has Sony's classic design. It's very boxy, very square, and then you have these top and bottom bezels here. For me personally, it's not an issue. I know a lot of people feel it's an outdated design, and if you see the design of the more premium Xperia XA2 that was unveiled at MWC, you'll see that Sony is starting to switch up the design a little bit. This phone does retain its more classic look, that more boxy look with those bezels. Doesn't bother me, honestly. And looking at the display, it is a 5.2-inch display, but those side bezels are really thin, probably one of the thinnest I've seen. So I really like it. I really like how it feels in the hand and how it looks overall. And I think Sony did a great job here with the design of the phone. And speaking of design, Sony did put the fingerprint sensor on the back of the phone. Typically they've done it at the side with the power button in the past, but this time is the first time they've moved it over to the back, and it's the first one that works here in the US, so that's really great to see. And the fingerprint scanner works really well. In terms of accuracy, that is, it's very accurate. I don't get any miscues at all with this phone. So the only thing is it's just not the fastest fingerprint scanner you'll have. There's a bit of a delay when you put your finger on it and then when it comes on. So again, when you're used to working with flagships that come on like instantly when you put your finger on it, this one does take a little bit longer, but come on, nothing too much of an inconvenience there. And again, more important to me is the accuracy of it, and this one is very accurate. So I really like it. They did a good job with that. And with the display here, again, this is a 5.2-inch display. It is full HD, 1080p, which you would expect on a mid-range device. No need to go with a QHD, especially with a phone of this size, a screen of this size. There's absolutely no need to bump up the resolution at all. The display is very crisp and clear, and I really enjoy using it. And 1080p, of course, we know does save on battery, so absolutely no complaints there with the quality of it. And again, with a 5.2-inch screen, you can really hardly tell at all that this is 1080p versus QHD. Okay, so moving on to software. This phone does come out of the box with Android 8.0, so it's really nice to see that it is running Android's latest operating system. It is also running Sony's own custom UI on here, which is actually it's pretty basic. There's not a whole lot to say about it. It's a pretty basic UI, similar to the stock experience, I would say. You've got the Google Now cards over on the leftmost pane. And that's really about it. There's nothing really extra here baked into the software. There's a couple customization things that you can find, like if you go into the settings and click on appearance, you can change the theme. So you can come here and go to the Xperia store, get more themes, and that could help you change the look of it if you do want more customizations. You can go through what they have. Some of them are free, some of them you have to purchase. I haven't really played around much with the themes, but that is available, and that's basically it. Pane transitions as well, which I don't really see on many phones nowadays. You could kind of just change how your home screens will transition, but those are pretty minor things. So a couple customizations options there. Other than that, not much else going with the UI on this phone. It is pretty simple to use. Anybody who's probably new to Android would like this UI, I would say, because it's not complicated at all. So yeah, that pretty much covers it with the software. So let's go ahead now and talk about the camera experience, which is probably the main talking point of this phone. So going ahead and flipping it around, you can see the single 23 megapixel main camera with an f2.0 aperture. And flipping it around the front, we do have an 8 megapixel selfie camera with a 120-degree wide angle lens, so you can go ahead and fit more of your friends into your selfies. Now overall, the camera quality, I would say, has been pretty good. I mean, you do have to consider the overall price of this phone. Again, it is a budget-friendly phone, so you're not going to go ahead and compare this phone to something like the Pixel 2. But for the price you pay, it is a pretty good camera. Take it out in the day in good lighting conditions, and you can get some great shots. Low light photos are, you know, kind of a mixed bag. You know, you could get some good shots here and there. Again, it depends on what kind of light exactly you have in the room. If it's extremely low light, if it's pretty dark, you're probably not going to get the best shot. So it is kind of a mixed bag there with the low light photos. Overall, I think it does a very good job, again, especially considering the price of the phone. But anyways, don't just take my word for it. I do have some samples to show you, and you can decide for yourself what you think about it. So those were just some sample shots that I took with this phone. So please go ahead and hit the comments and let me know what you think about the overall picture quality. Again, I think in good lighting conditions, you can get some really good photos here. And in low light conditions, sometimes you can get a pretty decent shot. Sometimes it's a little bit harder. Pretty mixed bag there. Now, talking more about the camera, again, with the main 23 megapixel camera, you are able to take 4K video, which is pretty neat. So if you go on top and switch over to the video mode and come over here and click on settings and then video resolution, you're going to notice that you're not going to see the 4K video option here. Instead, Sony went and kind of hid it in other options. Okay, so going back, if you come up top here where you see those 6 dots and you click on there, so you get some other options that come up, and you can see 4K video there. So you can click on that, and then you can start filming in 4K, which I think is pretty cool to add, especially considering the price of the phone. I think it's really great that they chose to include 4K video on a mid-range device. So going over to some other options, they do have this pretty cool creative effect here. And this just applies like different filters to your photos. You can choose different ones here. So for example, let's bring this here. So I can aim my camera, I can choose like a different filter here. So if I want to do like a color sketch, I can go ahead and take the shot here. And it will come out, let's look at the picture. It'll come out like a color pencil drawing. So that's pretty nice feature on here. Again, there are other filters available that you can choose from, a fisheye, anything. So if you're the type of person that really likes to have fun with your camera while you're taking pictures and put on different filters, this is a really cool little thing that was included there. So that pretty much covers it with the camera. Again, I think you do get some pretty decent quality here with it, with the main camera, especially considering the price of the phone. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. The audio experience on the XA2 is also pretty decent. Certainly nothing to complain about. Up top you do have the headphone jack that Sony has retained, whereas so many other phones are losing it. So you still have that. And then at the bottom, you can see a single bottom firing speaker. Now, I thought the speaker quality was pretty good and gets pretty loud. I didn't have too many expectations of it. Again, being a mid-range device and being only a single bottom firing speaker, I really didn't have any expectations of it. But I am pleased to say that I thought the speaker did really good and gets nice and loud. So no complaints there at all. Battery life has also probably been one of the best features of the phone as well. It does great in regards to battery here. I can go over a day, probably like 28 hours usually between charges, and I'm getting really good screen on time. Let's check it out what I've got recently here. Going over to the battery, advanced. And you can see that my screen on time right now is almost 6.5 hours. My last charge was about 25 hours ago, and I've still got 24% battery remaining. And I use my phone to do various things. I'm not a big gamer, so if you're a gamer, you're probably going to have a different experience here. But, you know, going on to Google Chrome, browsing, going on YouTube, watching videos, that's pretty much how I use my phone all day. And yeah, I'm very pleased with the battery. Again, 33 milliamp hour battery here, and it works really well, so it's optimized good. In terms of charging speed, the charging is not the quickest. There's no fast, quick charge coming in the box. And it takes about 2 hours or maybe a little over 2 hours for me to charge the phone. And I usually plug it in around 15 to 20% battery. And it takes me about a couple hours for it to get fully charged. And in this day and age where quick charge is just all over the place, that's probably been something that's been more difficult for me to get adjusted to, is that I can't just plug it in quickly to get a charge going. But yeah, other than that, the battery does last really well, so I'm pleased about that. So overall, that's pretty much covers everything. I do like the phone. One thing I did fail to mention, though, was the speed of it. And, you know, this is running the Snapdragon 630 processor. It's got 3 gigabytes of RAM. So it's not the fastest phone on the market, and that's also something I had to adjust to while using it. I'm used to using flagship phones with more RAM and the higher Snapdragons. So this was a little bit harder for me. Pulling up apps, especially Facebook, I found it could take a couple seconds sometimes for Facebook to pull up. And you know, if I have a lot of things open at once, a lot of apps running in the background, then it could slow up. So that's another thing to keep in mind. But overall, I do like the phone. I am actually looking forward. I want to get my hands on their premium phone coming out, again, the XZ2 that was announced at MWC. Because there are a lot of things I like about this phone, but I think maybe I want one that's a little bit faster, and hopefully the XZ2 will be like that. So I will try to get my hands on it, and then of course we'll give you guys my review of that phone if I should get my hands on it. But yeah, that pretty much covers it. I think this is a good phone. I do think it might be slightly overpriced at $350. I think a more fair price would be if they took it down to maybe $300. And I say that because there's really nothing extra going on with this phone. There's not much that separates it from other phones available. Like just to compare it off the top of my head to something like the U11 Life, which is exactly the same price at $350. The U11 Life includes the Edge Sense feature that is found on HTC's flagships, and it also includes water and dust resistance. So the Xperia really doesn't have any kind of feature or thing that you can't find on other phones. There's nothing that sets it apart. It's a basic smartphone. It runs well enough. But I think it might be just a little bit overpriced, and I think they could bring it down a notch, maybe to $300 would be more fair. But other than that, it's been pretty okay experience for me using it as my daily driver. So for those who are on a budget, don't want to spend a lot of money on a flagship, I do feel comfortable recommending this phone. I think it is a pretty good job. So that pretty much covers my review. Go ahead and let me know what you think in the comments, if this is a phone you would consider getting or not getting for whatever reason. And let me know. And I will see you guys in the next video.